Oh, hello there. My name is Kyle Roberts, and I'm the Executive Director of the Congregational Library and Archives. Up here on the library's third floor stacks, we hold thousands of books published by the Pilgrim Press and its predecessor, the Congregational Publishing Society. One book in particular that's been a favorite of visitors and staff alike is Anna Burnham Bryant's 1902 classic, The Christmas Cat. I'm so pleased that this year, the Pilgrim Press has updated the book and re-released it. I hope you'll find a copy under your Christmas tree and enjoy it as much as we do. Merry Christmas.
At the Pilgrim Press, we understand wonder to be foundational for hope, and hope to be foundational for faith. So this year, the Pilgrim Press republished and rewrote a beautiful old story called The Christmas Cat, published originally in 1902 by the Pilgrim Press, reimagined it so that it might inspire wonder in readers of all ages in this Christmas season, so that we might collectively be encouraged to hope and find faith and joy.
Hi everyone, my name is Noah Jalango and I am a freelance writer and editor. I've been lucky enough to have been given the opportunity by the Pilgrim Press to rewrite a classic Pilgrim Press book, The Christmas Cat. I had a lot of fun working on this project and I loved rereading and going through the original, so I hope you enjoy it. I really liked the idea of re-releasing a 100-year-old book and trying to rewrite the original story in the modern day. Giving new life to an author's ideas in a completely different century is just so fascinating and cool to me. And I knew it wouldn't be easy, having to translate the original setting, the language the characters used, the technology referenced in the original book would be tough to reframe in a way that'd be digestible to a kid reading the story in 2024 or 2025. But when you really break down the original story, it kind of comes back to a mischievous cat and its two young, enthusiastic owners, which I think is an idea and premise that can exist in any era. So when I thought about how I wanted to rewrite the story, that was kind of the core that I wanted to focus around.
Do you see it? Asked Polly. No, said Wally gloomily. I think we lost it. With tears in their eyes, Polly and Wally started to walk back to the room their parents were in. They were ready to go home. Excuse me, came a voice out of nowhere. Polly, still sniffling, wiped the tears from her eyes and looked around for the strange voice. Is this your cat? Polly and Wally turned around to see a tall woman with glasses and hair all the way down to her ankles standing behind them. Is this the cat you're searching for? The stranger repeated. Wally quickly realized what he thought was a snowball in the woman's hands was actually a tiny white kitten.
Polly, that's the cat, right? Polly's tears evaporated from her face as she ran toward the stranger. Thank you so much. This kitty winked at me and then ran away, so we've been looking for it, she explained. He winked at you, huh? It sounds like you two already have a special connection, the stranger commented. He didn't wink at me, but I helped try to find him, added Wally proudly. Yes, of course. We can't forget about your help in all this too, laughed the stranger. The three of you will enjoy many adventures, I'm sure. So, here is your cat. Make sure to hold him tight. The stranger handed Polly the cat, and the two children ran back to show their parents. Polly paused before going back into the other room. Thank you for your... Polly stopped, realizing the mysterious stranger had disappeared.
When I first started the process of rewriting the book, I immediately thought back to some of my favorite books that I read when I was a kid. One of those being the Magic Treehouse series. Like my rewrite, those books also centered around a brother and sister who would always go on these crazy adventures and then get back home before their parents even knew that they were gone or that anything had happened in the first place. It was also the Magic Treehouse books that let me realize how creative you can get when you incorporate magic into a story and how much more whimsical it feels. One of the challenges I faced with this story, though, was finding that balance between keeping the story grounded enough that it felt true to the original, but also still finding those little moments to sprinkle in a little bit of magic just to give it some extra flavor in the rewrite.
Okay, she sighed, grabbing the toy. And he really should have a proper name by now. What about Kitty, suggested Wally. Or Kitty Cat, or Catty, or... Wally continued to list different cat names when Polly noticed the cat had moved from its spot on the floor. It was staring out the window at the rain, giving an occasional meow in annoyance. Polly walked over to the cat. I know. I wish it would snow more too, she said. Suddenly the cat stopped meowing and turned to look at Polly. He winked at her and started to run around Wally's room. Polly, did you open my window? Asked Wally. No, replied Polly. Then why is it so cold in here? He said. I don't know, but look at...
Polly stopped in the middle of her sentence as she felt something cold fall on her hand and her leg, and then her hair. Wally and Polly both stopped what they were doing and looked up. Wally's ceiling had disappeared and was replaced by a huge cloud that was dropping snow. The siblings looked at each other and then at the cat, who was busy playing with the snowflakes. How is this happening? Said Wally. I'm not sure, said Polly, but let's play. Wally and Polly closed the door, grabbed coats from Wally's closet, and began to play in the snow with their new cat.
While I was writing the story, I really chose to intentionally write Winky as if he were a child, much like Wally and Polly. It didn't really make sense to me to introduce Winky to the story with all of his magical powers figured out. Then there's no real journey there from beginning to end. So as Wally and Polly learn about themselves and about Winky, Winky's also learning about himself. I didn't want Winky just to be a magic cat that just exists in the story. I wanted to give him a real sense of start and end in terms of how he grows as a character in the story. That's why I thought writing him almost as another kid besides Wally and Polly made sense. You know, at the beginning of the story, he's learning about his own powers. He gets curious about things later in the story and even ends up getting into trouble at one point. He learns that he can use his own gifts for himself and others, just like Wally and Polly learn. And as much as Winky was a gift from Wally and Polly's parents to them, I like to imagine Winky as just another sibling to the kids too.
Olivia grabbed the bag of flour from the counter and prepared to add it to the mix, but something felt off. The bag of flour felt much lighter once she actually lifted it up. She filled a measuring cup with the rest of the flour. Not even a full cup, said Olivia sadly. I wish we had some more flour. Winky sat up from the floor, looked at Olivia, and winked. Then he laid back down. Polly returned to the kitchen with the cocoa powder. Got the chocolate, she said. It doesn't matter, said Emma. We don't have enough flour. Zoe's mom walked into the kitchen. How's everything going, ladies? Need help with anything? She said. We don't have enough flour, complained Abigail. I see, said Zoe's mom. She looked at her watch. I think Zoe and her dad won't be home for another hour or so. I'll run to the grocery store and pick some up for you. Thank you so much, said Polly. I'll be back soon, promised Zoe's mom as she left the house.
In the meantime, Polly and Winky, Abigail and Emma and Olivia went into the living room to play. As they left the kitchen, none of the girls noticed the green buds that were starting to appear on the kitchen floor. And the girls, well, they had a great time just running around, playing pretend in the living room. But then they started to get thirsty. Let's pause and get some water, suggested Abigail. The other girls agreed, and they made their way back to the kitchen. But it looked a whole lot different from when they left it. Are those flowers? Asked Olivia. Polly looked at Winky, who meowed at her proudly. And guess what? The kitchen floor was covered in flowers of all kinds. There were roses and daisies and tulips and lilies and even buttercups. It looked like the most beautiful indoor flower garden ever created. But Polly had a feeling that Zoe's mom might not be so impressed.
Much like the original, I think depending on how you interpret the story, there are a few different lessons that you could take away. In general, with my rewrite, I tried to focus on the themes of wonder, whimsy, friendship, and love. But the main moral that really stands out to me in the rewrite is just that idea of being willing to share your gift with others. In the beginning of the book, Wally and Polly pretty much just use Winky's magic for themselves. But by the end, they've come around to realize that they can use it to help their friends, family, and even people they don't know.
"What was that?" said Polly. "It's okay. It was just some thunder," explained Papa calmly. "It looks like it's really going to storm tonight. It's a good thing you got your candy early." "But what about the kids who are trick-or-treating now?" asked Wally. "They're probably headed home now with whatever candy they got," explained Mama. "I'm sure they don't want to get caught outside during a storm." As everyone settled back down to watch the movie, Wally was upset. Not for himself, but for all those kids who might not have gotten candy because of the storm. That didn't seem fair.
Wally walked into the kitchen to get a drink of water, and Winky followed. "Winky," said Wally, "I think we should help those kids." Wally bent down and looked Winky in the eyes. "I wish all the kids who couldn't trick-or-treat tonight got as much candy as they wanted," said Wally. Winky winked at Wally and walked back to the living room with the rest of the family. Wally stood in the kitchen and looked around to see if anything had changed. But he couldn't tell because he already got his candy. Then he looked out the kitchen window. He could slightly see into their neighbor, Mr. Stevens' house. He watched as Stevens' son, Nico, ran into the kitchen cheering and screaming with happiness. His bucket was filled to the top with candy. It worked, thought Wally. He walked back into the living room with a smile on his face as he imagined all of the other children who he and Winky made a little bit happier on this rainy Halloween.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Season's greetings to all, and I'm praying for a new year that will be filled with joy and love and peace.